What is going on, everyone? My apologies for the Twilight-esque lighting. It is just temporary, right? I'm trying to sort out all the lighting in my living space, moving out pretty soon, so that's just how it goes. I'm going to talk about bulking. This is a highly requested topic, right? Because a lot of people do it wrong. They don't really understand, the context behind bulking, the protocol, etc. So, a lot of people are under the idea that they have to bulk to gain size, and that's really just not the case, right? So main gaining is still effective, which is where you're essentially gaining muscle and losing body fat at the same time. Even advanced lifters, I honestly suggest that advanced lifters do this, right? Because you're not going to be really gaining that much muscle in the first place, right? And so if you really want to look as good as possible, preserving that lean kind of cut look is really going to be more beneficial than getting fluffy every 3 or 4 months and then, cutting down to see the same thing over and over again, which is why you see a lot of guys that are very advanced preaching for main gaining. But, within your first 5 years of training, bulking, cutting, those cycles still work pretty well. You can put on considerable muscle mass in a quicker period of time than you would main gaining. And, we have some research that is a little conflicting on all of this, but that is simply my opinion. So when do I suggest people to bulk in the first place, right? Bulking to me is more of a reverse dieting process, right? So if you come out of a prep for a show, I understand a lot of you guys aren't doing that, but even like a pretty deep cut where you're getting below, 11, 12% body fat, or even single digit, you're going to have to gain adiposity one way or another if you're whether you're a natural or enhanced guy. Like, that's just going to happen, right? So I don't think that you should force it, and I also don't think that you should keep restricting yourself while you're in this catabolic state just so that you can look, sick and shredded, right? There is a way to where you can gain a lot of muscle mass back that you probably lost during the heavy deficit near the tail end, or, even muscle that wasn't there in the first place, while gaining minimal adiposity. And I'm going to tell you exactly how to do that. So this is the main idea: increasing your metabolic rate. And you may say, how do I do that, right? So when you're getting near the tail end of your cut, you're getting towards single digit body fat, your metabolism goes to the shitter, right? This is why you have to drop the calories every couple of weeks, because cardio is just not going to cut it. So when we're reverse dieting and we're bulking, we kind of want to do the opposite. So raising your calories in a very distinct way. Now, a lot of guys cut and they will drop their fat content very low. I would recommend bringing that up, if you're a natural guy especially, to a reasonable amount. That's going to control satiety and hormones. We got to get you back on track, right? Even the enhanced guys need to up their fat a little bit coming out of a prep, just because the satiety is not going to be there, right? No amount of volume eating is going to keep you full and make you feel like you're, satiated, literally. Natural guys, I would say anywhere from 60 to 80 grams is probably good enough, depending on the size, your size, right? And then, for enhanced guys, probably anywhere from 30 to like 50 grams, right? You don't need to go too heavy here. Now, what you have to know is that your body really, really wants to gain some body fat, okay? So increasing your dietary fat like crazy, probably not the best idea, right? So, CICO is going to rule at the end of the day, but if we increase our calories through fat, that's not really what we're trying to do here. And I'll tell you exactly why. Study on this, right? Essentially, if you increase your caloric intake with purely carbohydrates, so you have an excess of carbohydrates, you're over your calories, your body will try to offset that by increasing non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and therefore your total daily energy expenditure, right? You also will notice this, like guys that come directly out of prep, they'll eat a bunch of food and they get a sudden shock of energy, right? They'll pass out every now and then from the insulin spikes, but they're like motivated. They want to walk around, do all this stuff. They're getting like 30K steps, etc. This is your body's natural way of dealing with an energy surplus in the form of sugar, fast-acting energy, right? So for guys that are reverse dieting, bulking, I always opt for increasing carbohydrates first over fat. And I know a lot of guys are like, well, I'm a hard gainer, I have to eat just fat so I can, because they're so calorically dense. I have to. It's like, well, hold on, because we're not trying to put on body weight as quickly as possible. We're trying to gain muscle as quickly as possible. Carbohydrates are going to drive performance in the gym, and they're also going to, supply that look, that crazy look, full muscle glycogen storages, right? So when you're coming out of this, I would recommend increasing your carbohydrate intake as needed, right? So I typically opt for, fibrous sources. They're probably a little bit better micronutrient wise, and also you're going to stay full. But that doesn't mean you can't have simple sugars before and after the gym, right? Because, when we do pre-workout meals, we're really trying to, we're focused more on satisfying liver glycogen at the end of the day anyways, to kind of fuel your session, right? So big thing is increasing your carbohydrate intake. That's massive. And this is going to increase your metabolism, like we said. And so I would say, this is a general rule of thumb, anywhere from 500 to 550 grams of carbs after coming out of an intense diet down. That's going to be very beneficial, but you have to increase your activity as needed, right? We got to stay active on our feet. You can't be vegging out all day, being sedentary. And this is where I actually do think that these watches hold some merit, because you can watch your heart rate trend and figure out, okay, when was I kind of vegging out? And, you can see that, like, as soon as that meal hits, right, and you've digested that meal, you're ready to move again. And I'm moving around a lot more. My heart rate spiked. I'm on my feet. I'm not laying down all sedentary. And this is the problem, right? A lot of guys, especially in the deficit itself, they're willing to slash the calories before they slash the activity. But the activity drives your metabolism at the end of the day, okay? So we can't just cut meals. You can't just cut meals. And it's the same thing with bulking. I recommend adding the meals and then adding cardio. And people are like, what? You have to do cardio in a bulk? It's like, yeah, that's really the time that it's the most important, I feel. And so we do know that, zone 2 exercise is going to enhance nutrient partitioning, particularly post-meal, right? So if you're on a bulk, I recommend getting some sort of digestive enzyme formula, getting some, steps in after your meals. Even something like 10 minutes, 15 minutes is enough to enhance insulin sensitivity, which I know that's a buzzword, but still, and nutrient partitioning. Other huge thing is too, on top of that, right? Makes it a lot easier to get your cardio in for the day if you don't do a big block at once. Like I said, they've done studies on this as well. Smaller blocks of shorter cardio sessions post-meal are going to be more effective than one big block of cardio for insulin sensitivity and regulating your blood glucose. If you're bulking, I don't think big meals are the way to go. And a lot of guys will go big meals. I do big meals on cuts, right? I do 2 big meals on a cut. And that doesn't mean I do them right before I work out and after I work out. I know a lot of guys do that. No, I don't do that, all right? That's too much in the gut at once. When I'm bulking, I want smaller meals around the clock. So I want them every 2, every 3 hours, all right? I'm not sitting there and eating one massive meal when I wake up, waiting 8 hours until I feel hungry again. It's like, come on, man. Let's talk about, the meal choice itself, because we did kind of touch up on it with the lower fats and the higher carbohydrates, but what does that really mean? What kind of meat sources I'm looking at? You got to hit your micronutrients either way. And, I don't hate ground beef, but if you're going to go ground beef, leaner cuts. 93.7, 96.4, 90.10's fine, right? If you're going to get 85.15, I'm going to strain it. I'm going to opt for leaner cuts of ground beef. I'm going to opt for salmon, leaner cuts of salmon, like I said. And I'm going to opt for, chicken breast, right? Which isn't very, micronutrient dense, but it's going to get the job done, right? Carb sources, if I'm cutting down, I'm looking at only potatoes. If I'm bulking up, it depends really on how much is your appetite really spiked. Hey, me personally, I like a 75-25 split of, potatoes to rice. So 75% potatoes, 25% rice. But I know a lot of other people that can only do rice. or, they have to do only potatoes just because they got a big appetite. So, a lot of guys will preach for this. You really shouldn't go over a 300 calorie surplus. There isn't going to be a big difference, right? So that's why I preach for the leaner cuts of meat. It's harder to go over with these less fatty cuts. You don't really need the fat that much anyways. Talk about pre and post gym. What do I like? Before the gym, fruits are going to be king, okay? Fruits are great. If you have a little bit more time on your hands, I love oats. I would say if you're going to eat fruit, probably 45, 50 minutes before you go to the gym is the best time, right? If you find yourself feeling tired as you're driving to the gym, probably need to move it up a little bit, right? That soluble fiber is going to slow the digestion of carbohydrates, but depending on what state you're in, that may be spiking your blood sugar too fast, and it can make you a little lethargic, right? Which is not ideal if you're about to go to the gym. Post gym, pretty much the same deal, right? You're just trying to satisfy liver glycogen. Fruit's still great. I wouldn't try to wait it out. I wouldn't try to wait like 2 hours after the gym before you eat. No, man, don't do that, okay? Especially carbohydrates. Try to get those carbohydrates in your body. And we have studies that have concluded that delaying that carbohydrate consumption after the gym is going to lead to worse performance within the next session. So that's not ideal. And I would try to avoid that. So biggest thing, recaps on this video, digestion is huge when you're bulking. Don't go too much in the calorie surplus. You don't need to go over 300 calories, and increase your carbs before anything else. Protein, I keep it like 1 gram per pound. You go a little bit higher if you want to. It's not that big of a deal. We don't have a lot of studies on enhanced guys when it comes to protein and muscle protein synthesis by the consumption of protein. But I can't really make any claims there. I can't really make any claims. So you just have to see for yourself. But that's pretty much everything. You'll have a great one. Peace out.